Welcome to TalentWise, a podcast dedicated to identifying and unpacking challenges and solutions related to the workforce. In each episode, we hear from experts in their fields or industries who are fighting to better understand and adapt to shifting workforce dynamics. What are those dynamics, you might ask? Put most simply, the workforce crisis we've seen coming for decades is upon us, and most of us aren't nearly as prepared as we should be. Today, we're very fortunate to be joined by my friends and colleagues here at Markstein, Chris Hoke, our Chief Creative Officer, and Angela Thomas, our Brand Director. Together, we and other members of our team have worked on dozens of workforce campaigns and initiatives, including the Birmingham Police Department, the Birmingham Jefferson Port Authority, and the subject of today's conversation, good jobs. A timely discussion given our podcast that featured Rebirth Marketing, and the one before that with Dr. Olivia Howell and Sarah Wilson. Hoke, Angela, I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining us on TalentWise today. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Excited to be here.
We've talked a lot about how our agency kind of sits at the intersection of workforce solutions, branding, and crisis communications. How would you guys define that space, and why is it a powerful tool for clients when addressing workforce challenges in places like Birmingham?
I can dive in on that one, Angela, real quick. I mean, I think the evolution of how this company got to where it is was largely because we had maybe a higher altitude viewpoint of some of these problems, because we were involved in things like public policy, in obviously recruitment campaigns, but also understanding that each geographic area in which we do work is unique. And I think just having the amount of work in our home state that we had, and especially in our home city, it gave us a unique vantage point to be able to solve a problem, because truly it was, in a lot of these cases, it's not just about making people aware of something, it's about pointing them in the right direction and helping solve problems. So I think we were naturally sort of predetermined to be in this space, simply because over the course of 20 years, the agency has evolved to do lots of different things.
Danny, you also mentioned specifically communities like Birmingham, and I just wanted to add on to what Chris said, how important it is in a community like Birmingham, where so many people have been historically underserved, and seeing programs come and go, or programs that said that they were going to deliver something or help someone that it ended up being an empty promise. And so making sure that that combination of like credible and respectful and trustful all come together in a workforce challenge, in a workforce solution, to help rebuild that trust for the people in the community.
Definitely fuels the passion for what we do when we do it here at home. From y'all's perspectives, what differentiates our approach to workforce campaigns in particular from more traditional recruitment or awareness engagements?
I think Markstein doesn't just think about the job. We also think about the person. And of course, a workforce campaign is about hitting numbers and filling seats, but we also ask a completely different set of questions. You know, what would make the opportunity feel worth it to go after this job or to enter a training program? What's standing in someone's way? Like, what are the challenges there? And being intentional about gathering that information and then also utilizing it in language, visuals, messaging. So just thinking about the person that's going to end up in that seat, I think is really unique to the way Markstein approaches it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's our fundamental philosophical difference, is that you have to know what the job's offering, but you also really, really have to know what people want. And whether that's job, satisfaction from doing the work, if that's the benefits provided with the work. The only other thing that I think about sometimes with us is just depth. It's rare that there's one message that works for all the positions you need. If you need an accountant versus a diesel technician, what they're looking for in those jobs is very different. And so understanding that one organization may need lots of different types of people, and that's where I think our approach that's not one size fits all is really powerful.
When y'all think about good jobs in particular, what problems were you guys and the team trying to solve beyond getting people to engage with our content or register?
I think back to what we were talking about with the lack of clarity and trust within the community. Like the opportunities were already there. The training providers existed, the employers existed, like you said, the funding existed, and the people who wanted a good job. But it was very overwhelming, very fragmented. People didn't know where to start. And so solving and creating a pathway that was clear and coordinated that someone could step into just at one entry point and then be connected to all of the partners and resources, I think was a really big problem that we certainly helped address.
A huge amount of our time and effort in working on these types of problems is spent on identifying breakpoints, which might be the people we're trying to hire need help with transportation or childcare or help purchasing uniforms. And this was, in my mind, the first time that I had seen that system actually work really well. What made it even more impressive is that there was like, 10 different organizations working together, which again, that's in itself is pretty rare, especially in the public space. But for me, that was one of the major things about this is, oh, wow, we're actually going to fix these breakpoints. And that's really the focus of this. And I think that's truly why it was so successful was we connected all the dots. When I say we, I mean obviously our company, but all of the partners. And obviously listening back to the last two episodes where we really do a deep dive on good jobs, you get an idea of just how broad this coalition was.
Good jobs involved such a diverse audience. I mean, ranging from targets in the community who are good fits for these jobs, especially for unemployed single mothers, to the employers, the training partners, community stakeholders. How did y'all and the team think about messaging and the right narrative that would resonate with those different groups without sort of diluting the mission of good jobs in general?
For me, I think that the mission of helping primarily single mothers find jobs that were highly needed by our community, the mission, the clarity of that was so easy to follow that then it really just became about messaging to people, what is your part in this thing? Which honestly, again, like so many times, people don't have clarity of mission. And so that makes that messaging that much harder because you're trying to align everybody. Everyone knew what we were trying to accomplish. Even having a number that we were shooting for is such a rarity in our world where it's like, we know what we need to do to make an A plus. Now we just go about doing it.
Working inside of this company for 22 years and 10 months, it's been fun watching how our approach to messaging, which was really a foundational element for the company in 2003, and that media matrix that our team has really mastered. It's really cool to see how the evolution of that process has been built around fitting a client need with diverse audiences. Can y'all talk through how strategy and creative and media all work together on this campaign to make it successful?
Well, the most successful part of that, I would give a shout out to our project management team to keep all of those different groups moving. But I say the work only succeeds when we're all really integrated, and we know this internally, but also on the client facing side. We had interviews when we started our research project to the city of Birmingham, and we took all of that information that we gathered to help shape the strategy. And then the strategy shaped the creative and the messaging. And then the media, of course, is following real behavior of the people we're trying to reach. And so all of those working together and not in silos is always important and allowed us to also continue to be flexible, which was really important for this project as things evolved. Having the team fully tuned in across the board allowed us to keep that flexibility.
One other thing I would add, and I know we've already done an entire episode on this, but shout out to the Rebirth team. Having a partner who is truly embedded in the community was, in my mind, as powerful as having a healthy paid media budget, which we did. But it allowed us to really reach everyone we needed to reach, from people that we were only going to reach digitally all the way down to, literally people at job fairs. So I think, like, the strategy was sound, the creative followed it, just like Angela said, but that having that ability to leverage both high level paid media as well as boots on the ground was kind of a game changer.
As y'all sit here today on the other side of that critical work, what are some ideas, creative ideas, or strategic decisions that might have felt risky in the moment, but ultimately ended up being like the right call?
Risky might be the wrong word, but I felt like when we stepped into an assignment where you had so many different partners who, in some cases, were either unrelated services or perhaps even competing services with each other. Like, I remember stepping into and looking at the sort of partner landscape and all the people that would have to work together. And it definitely initially felt like a minefield based on past experience. But I will say that truly we did not run into that. And again, I could point to clarity of mission. I could point to the fact that the city itself was really administering the program. I think people all realize this is important for everyone. But yeah, I think, I wouldn't say that any of the creative or content decisions were risky per se. I think, it was just, it was hard to quantify how many different things our campaigns had to accomplish.
I will say, thinking about it, like the career pathway, it is pretty risky to ask people for potentially personal identifying information, right? To help them get connected with resources and the right people and the right programs. And I know even the city team was worried about that. Like, are people going to want to give us their information? That may be a barrier. And of course, with the help of our team, the way we message that to people about how it would be used is incredibly important. But it ended up definitely working because the career pathway was loved and was very effective at getting everyone connected to the right organizations and training providers.
Anytime you're working with a grant, especially a $10 million federal grant, accountability is really important and reporting is required. How did our team approach media planning, placement, and reporting to ensure that dollars were working as hard for us as possible?
My only thoughts are we treated the budget with respect and responsibility as we always do with all of our clients and regardless of the size of the budget. But we were disciplined about media placement and what would be most effective and very transparent in reporting. We certainly had a regular cadence of sharing reports with the client and sending over that information because they, like you said, are accountable to a federal grant. But all of that information was always visible to them and they could always reach out to us and get that information at any time.
The only thing I would add is that, as I mentioned, the mission was clear. Like, we knew how many people we had to move into training to really say that we accomplished what the grant had asked. It's frankly kind of rare that we actually have that distinct of an outcome that we're trying to get to. So the reporting part was actually pretty easy and fun because we were all aligned on, hey, what are we looking at? We're not looking at the number of impressions. We're not looking at these other metrics that are your day in, day out stuff. We're looking at how many people have we connected with either services or training. And to me, that's like a real gift to be able to say, we're not going after sort of this ethereal impact. We're going after real people impact. So, and to Angela's point, I think one of the things that we and our partners do really well is just to optimize constantly. So we rarely see our campaigns, if they are time duration based, see them drop off unpredictably because we're just continually optimizing and refreshing.
And as a result of that, the outcomes kind of speak for themselves. I mean, over 2,000 people engaged in this process, about 1,000 people who completed training, over 250 previously unemployed single mothers in jobs. What were the metrics that mattered the most to our team beyond impressions, clicks, and registrations?
I'll jump in. What mattered the most to me was the follow through. Did people stay engaged after the first touch point? Did they go on to complete a training? Did they secure employment and move forward in that job? Placing those people into jobs is very meaningful and a very important part of the work. But I look back on this work and the fact that the city built a system and we and Rebirth and all of the partners helped build a system that held people long enough from their first initial touch point, whether it was on the website or seeing an ad or at a job fair. But we built something that held them long enough to get them into training and then into a job as well. I think that that is just an incredible definition of success for this project.
I know personally for me, and I know Angela and I both felt this way when we talked about it, but seeing the videos that we were creating to just make sure that the community knew that this was something legit and to be trusted, seeing the people talk about what a change it had made for them was incredibly gratifying. So at the end of the day, you can look at numbers all day and you can satisfy what you set out to accomplish, but hearing real people talk about an improvement in their lives and their family's life through a job, which is really kind of, I think, what makes us passionate about this work. We got to really actually see that and hear from the voices of people who had benefited from it. So as meaningful as it was to our team, I actually think it was also very meaningful to the client, the city of Birmingham.
When you take $10 million of federal money and you help connect 254 previously unemployed single mothers to jobs with an average starting salary of $45,000, that's a 5-year economic impact for each one of those people of $420,000 through wages, taxes, reduced public assistance. When you see numbers like that, how does it make you feel? What's the feeling on our team when we get to the end of a road and those are the outcomes?
I mean, I think that's why we do it. I mean, it's fun work, but it's really rewarding because I can say personally, I feel like I'm doing the job I was born and meant to do. And for other people to feel that and have that in their lives to me it's central to being a person in society today, that some form of employment, work, something can really like complete who you are. So for me, like that, it feels amazing again when I hear these specific stories, but I'm also feel very lucky to be doing the job I'm doing. And I want other people to have that same feeling of confidence and like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
I think all of the work that we do at Markstein is important. But this work, especially, I think for the team as a whole, when it wrapped up, the team felt really good about it. And back to Chris's point of seeing the individual stories and hearing each individual impact. And like you said, Danny, the ripple effect is huge. It's creating stability for families, it's changing communities and neighborhoods, and ultimately is economic momentum for the city as a whole. And it's not often that a project of this size with this many people involved, like we've talked about, is successful, but this was, and the system that was built worked the way that it was supposed to, and that feeling at the end is also really great.
Yeah, we've worked on so many employer branding and workforce initiatives. But Good Jobs has sort of a special place, I think, in all of our hearts. Why does this kind of work matter personally to you? And why do you believe it's important for communities, agencies, industries, employers to think differently about recruiting and retaining a workforce?
I think really what we start to look at is communities. I mean, And you community can be small or large. It can be virtual or in the real world. But to me, the thing about Good Jobs, it was very pure in its intention. Meaning we were not working for a company trying to hire people. We weren't talking about the benefits that a specific company had. We were not talking about employment contracts and those things. This was literally, there are a lot of jobs and there are people who could greatly benefit from those jobs. It would help their station in life to improve. And so, you know, I think it feels really good to help our our home community, which oftentimes the work we're doing is sort of, again, like industry wide, could be nationwide things where you're kind of 3 or 4 steps removed when you can see it happening in your community and feel it in your community. I think that's a big difference for us. But yeah, for me, it was like at the end of the day, I hope other communities, and I know there's lots of people out there who got Good Jobs grants, and lots of people used it slightly differently. But to me, the power of that grant was we are choosing specific communities of people who can use help. And it was really about the people and less about the employers, which is just kind of refreshing. I mean, I love doing the employer based work, but to be able to really just speak to people about the benefits of what we could provide was really, really refreshing.
As we look ahead to future workforce campaigns, what are the lessons from Good Jobs that you would want to share with cities doing similar work, employers, funders who make this all possible? What are some lessons to apply to future workforce initiatives, and what role do you see our team playing in scaling that kind of impact?
I would Chris just said it in his previous response, but thinking about a workforce initiative, designing it from the participant's perspective outward, like less focused on posting a job and hoping the right person comes along, but thinking about what potential employees need and designing and acknowledging the barriers that they face, the childcare, the transportation, the time it takes, the resources it takes. There are so many jobs open and available, and I know that we as a world talk about that a lot, but we don't talk about how difficult it is to get a job, especially if you are coming from a historically underserved community and you don't have the right childcare or you don't have a car to get to an interview or maybe you don't have reliable internet access to like get online and apply for a job. So thinking through all of those things, which can be difficult, right? Like it's hard to create a pathway that is unique for every single person's situation. But at least acknowledging those and building the systems that address those realities from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm 100% right with you. The thing for me, my one piece of advice that I will say Good Jobs really clarified and made me understand that this really is the thing before you spend any money, before you go putting media on market, figure out the friction and break points between point A and point B. And if you do that, which is what Good Jobs did beautifully, and you create a system that gets people from initial interest all the way through training, all the way to the employer, like it works. It can work really well. And I think sometimes when we're working with different groups, it may be, hey, we need a ton of paperwork, from every applicant. So then it's how do you make that part of the process less painful and time consuming, right? It's just really looking at that pipeline and how to address each friction and break point. That for me was one of the biggest learnings was it can truly be done, you know? So I think that's something that every successive project after I immediately look at what's going to stop someone from getting from awareness to intention to a job.
What were your favorite moments from the Good Jobs Birmingham project?
I will say, because I'm a graphic designer at heart, watching people react when they saw the smiling face in the mark Like, I just never tire of people having that moment of sort of surprise and delight when they see something like that. And they're like, oh, I feel like I think a lot of the creative was really appropriate and also really added a fun element to this, which can be rare that you get to sort of inject that into a campaign like this. So that was my favorite moment, was watching people see that for the first time. Every time I could be in the room and watch somebody, it was great.
My favorite part was the people, from the partners, the training providers, the City of Birmingham team. Just a pleasure to work with everyone and how we all came together. And I think we mentioned it earlier in the episode, but how well everyone worked together and kept our end goal in mind, but also still remained flexible as goals and evolved and challenges came up. Just the people were and are my favorite part of this project.
Hoke, Angela, you did pretty good. You came out unscathed. I hope it didn't hurt too much. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I get to be with you guys every day, but it's great to be with you here on Talent Wise. Our team is extremely fortunate to have each of you, and I'm excited to see what opportunities are in store for us the rest of this year and beyond. So thank you all for taking the time today.
Yeah, super fun. It's fun to be on this side of the microphone.
I hope y'all listening at home will join us next time. Thanks so much, guys.